What's up, Warriors, and welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Movement Podcast, Voice for the Voiceless. I am your host, Chris. Today's special guest is a military veteran who also is the CEO of the Clear Path for Veterans. Before we bring him in, I just want to, state out here for my audience, for my listeners, and potential future guests. I think it's really huge for any man to come on a podcast and just share, even if it's a little bit of their story. We talk about the suicide numbers all the time. We talk about just how detrimental those numbers are and what that conversation looks like. So, I'm really grateful to have our guest on today because I think it's really important that we have these conversations, that we give a space for our fellow man and fellow woman as well. Um, just to have the conversation on mental health. So please help me welcome Ryan. Ryan, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing well, and I think you said it best. Thank you for the opportunity to be on the show and share a little bit about my story.
Of course, man. I was really excited to see when your assistant reached out and just kind of told me a little bit about your story and doing my research on you and just kind of getting a feel for what you stand for and everything, man. I think it's very powerful in the things that you bring to the table. So let's get started, man. Let's tell a little bit about your story. Tell us a little bit about your time in the military.
Yeah, so with everybody, there's a beginning, middle, and end, and I'll try to fast forward right to my time of service. Just a little bit of context. I grew up in central New York, graduated high school in '05. I've always wanted to be a Marine my entire life, as far back as I can remember. And I tell people often that what it really attracted me to the Marine Corps was not only its reputation for being extremely challenging, one of the more difficult branches, but also it was a fraternity, a brotherhood, and a community that I felt like as a kid growing up, I never really got involved in any kind of community groups. It was hard for me to build friendships, moved around a lot growing up, and never was any one place at any given time. So the Marine Corps definitely, imprinted on me at a young age. And so as soon as I graduated high school, I'll even go a little bit further back. I enlisted in my junior year in the delayed entry program, like most of us, just to get a head start, particularly on the fitness side of things. When I enlisted, it was well within Operation Iraqi Freedom. And I was very interested in getting into a combat MOS, particularly as an infantry rifleman, because the Marine Corps rifleman has their reputation as well. And so, it wasn't hard, but to convince my mother to sign the enlistment papers, I was like, listen, either you do it now and give me a little bit of a heads up, a leg forward, to help me get acclimated to what I'm going to ultimately be doing, at least what I thought at the time, or just wait till I'm 18. I'm just going to do it anyway. So she did. She caved, and the day I graduated boot camp in June, I was off to Paris Island.
So, you head to Paris Island. What was your mentality heading there? Like, were you stoked to do it, or was you just kind of like afraid of the unknown? What was your mentality going there?
I was pretty pumped. Obviously, I was a little anxious. I have done enough research at that point in time to know what I was getting myself into, but I set myself up for what was to come, from a knowledge standpoint, from the fitness standpoint. I was already doing all that stuff. My brother enlisted with me, so we went to boot camp at the same time, and we were in the same platoon, which it happens, and it was a unique experience because of that. But we got there a little bit later than the platoon dropped, so we got like fast tracked through the whole yellow footprint experience, which is good and bad. But I felt like I kind of lost out on that opportunity. You see it in all the videos and whatnot. But boot camp was a mind game. It was all about moving fast, screaming loud, and doing what you're told to do. And if you could do that, then you were good, right? Like I learned pretty quickly it's better to fly under the radar in boot camp than it is to stick out. My brother didn't get that memo, and he ended up picking up a squad leader position pretty quickly. And just by nature of my relationship with him, anytime he was getting PT to death. They were like, "Hey, go get your sister," and I would have to join them. And so I got both sides of that in, but it was cool. I'm glad to have gone with him. Again, it's not. People always say like boot camp's easy, no big deal. It's not easy.
Right.
It's a constant mind game, right? Like you're waking up before the sun comes up, you're getting screamed at, yelled to get out of bed, you're getting countdown, from 100 to 1, which is really a fraction of the time the way drill instructors count down. And it just programs you to do things very quickly. And
Right.
I'll say that stuck with me and I'm in my mid 30s now.
Hmm.
And I move fast, I eat fast, always 15 minutes early to every meeting or appointment. It's just there's some things that don't leave you, and that's definitely was one of them.
Yeah, and I'm sure having that routine just kind of embedded into your head just helps you move through life a lot easier than, just going through it without military experience. So you finished boot camp. Have you gotten deployed out of the country? Like, did you tour Iraq or anything?
Yeah, so as an infantryman at the time that I enlisted, I knew full well that I'd be going to Iraq fairly quickly. As soon as I finished boot camp, I went home for leave for a couple days, and then I went back to North Carolina, where I started my job training in the School of Infantry, which is like boot camp 2.0 essentially, except it's more focused on the technical skills that you need to be an infantryman. And that was it was a good experience. I met a lot of really, really good friends that I eventually deployed with. And that was really where I started to build some of the brotherhoods that would last me a lifetime.
Right.
And I will say those weren't formed out of like common interest or, you like to do these things. It was formed out of like shared misery because all of us were just doing the same things. We were experiencing the same field trainings, the same BS that the chain of command and the instructors were putting us under, really for whatever reason. But that's where I would say I started to build some of that like mental resilience, you could call it,
Right.
maybe, but more of just the enduring character of working through some of the things you're like, this was not in the brochure.
Right.
Like me dogpiling with a bunch of dudes just to stay warm in January is not something you read in the recruiting brochures, right?
Right.
But you do what you got to do, and it really does bring together tight bonds.
Yeah, and I've always admired people that serve because you hear a bunch of different stories, whether it's from the older generation or it's our generation of people who have served. I've heard my fair share of friends who have been in Africa, who have been in Italy, and just talk about their different experiences. So, how long did you say you served for?
4 years,
4 years.
4 years. Yeah.
So, what is life after serving look like for you? Like, how did you adjust from being go, go, go to essentially not, being under a chain of command? How do you adjust to that?
There's so much to unpack in that. I mean, going back to School of Infantry, I left there and was assigned to my unit, 3rd Battalion, 2nd Marines. And that's when the world really started to change, right? Because within 7 months of being dropped to my unit, we were going to Iraq. And so everything from then on was just training, 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 repeat exercises to the point where it became reflexive. Some of the stuff that, we were doing, I'm like, this feels like, we're in the backcountry woods of North Carolina. What the hell does this have to do with Iraq? But it's really just fundamentals, right? And we did it so many damn times that it really did stick with you. And when it mattered and it worked. Before deploying to Iraq, we went out to California, a place called 29 Palms, did a combined arms exercise just to do real world training scenarios, which was, I would say, the best training that I did while in the military that was most applicable to the job I was going to be doing in Iraq. And so, everything up until this point was programming, getting me to think a certain way, act a certain way, move a certain way, and work as a team, a united team. And in country, like we deployed, we got to our area of operations, and it was like I didn't know what to expect, right? Like we left the wire, which was for us, we were in a place called Habania, which laid right in between Fallujah and Ramadi and Al Anbar province. And they loaded us up in tracks. And, we're in these tracks, and I'm like, man, it's like all this reminds me of is like Saving Private Ryan when the ramp drops down. We're just going to be ripped up with a hail of gunfire, which wasn't the case at the time.
Right.
We get to our OP, which is an observation post. And from there on out, we didn't go back in the wire. We stayed out of the wire for the remainder of the deployment, unless we were coming back to like do our laundry or take showers, which was every 45 to 60 days plus. And we rip out with a another unit, so relieve in place. There's another unit there. They're all sleeping in their racks, most of them with their boots on. I'm like, man, that looks horrible. Like they're just ready to go all the time. And you could tell like these guys are salty. They've been there for 7 months. They're ready to go home. And we were just like fresh camis jumping in, ready to take on the world. And we started overseeing a military security route right in between all of these observation posts, which was just a heavily trafficked road between the civilian population and military. And it was getting hit with small arms fire and IEDs continuously. And for us, when we first got there, it was quiet. I mean, for the first 2 months, there was not a lot going on. And what I realized now that I didn't at the time, and it was told to us, like these guys are watching us. They're taking intel. They're watching your movements when you're doing patrols, when you're moving from post to post, or when you're getting relief from post. And so, at first I'm like, this is going to be a cakewalk, right? Like if this is it, it's not so bad. But really got humbled very quickly when the bombs started going off. We started getting deployed for QRF because convoys were getting hit with IEDs and small arm fire ambushes, a lot of sniper fire. And you can't, for me at this time in Iraq, everything was positive identification, know your targets. And it was very difficult to do because everybody looked the same, whether it's the guy shooting at you and dropping the rifle and running away compared to a guy carrying groceries down the street. They all looked exactly the same, which made it very difficult to do what we were doing. And so, this deployment from then on was just heavily contested space. We were continuously receiving small arms fire, IEDs, firefights, and it was pretty much nonstop, and started losing guys. And so it became real quick. And I was 19 at this time. So I tell people often, like, I look at 19-year-olds now and I'm like, I just can't fathom
Yeah.
throwing that kid into a place like that. It was
Yeah.
just incredible.
And you look at today's world and just the 20-year-olds and teens that are walking around now. It's a completely different world. And thinking about like when I was in high school, so you're about 5 years ahead of me. So like I'm thinking when I was in high school and thinking about the people that went in the military and that served. It's like, yeah, this generation of kids is just I don't know if it's the technology or whatever it is, but I couldn't imagine them doing half the things that the people that serve like yourself went through. So you get deployed and you experienced all the things that you experienced there. And whenever you come home, what inspired you to get involved in veteran support and advocacy?
Really, it was the challenge with my own transition. So I never really answered your question.
It's okay. It's okay.
Came home, it sucked, right? Like
Yeah.
I had a plan. I thought I knew what I was going to do.
Mhm.
And all indications were law enforcement was going to be the route to take, but it didn't line up for me for
Mm.
whatever reason, right? Civil service, state exams, it didn't work out. And so I had to pivot and think about what the hell do I do with 4 years combat experience in an infantry occupational specialty? Like, how does that translate into anything outside of law enforcement? And for a long time, I wanted to go back in because I just couldn't assimilate into the community.
Right.
I was having a real hard time finding, again, back to before, middle, and end. Before, I had a hard time finding community. After, I had a very hard time finding community because now I really couldn't relate to these kids that you were just
Yeah.
describing in a classroom full of 18-year-old, you know, adults that just, it didn't, it was very difficult for me. So it wasn't until several years after I got out, right? I got out in '09. I tried to do life the best that I could. I fell into a lot of pitfalls, including alcoholism, which carried with me for about a decade. And I would say even before getting out of the Marine Corps, that was an issue for me. But being who I was really uncomfortable with myself. And that was the only thing that helped me find any kind of joy in life and suppress all of the discomfort in my head and just be a different person that I could, be joyful to be around. It's
Mhm.
something that I really, really struggled with.
Right.
2016 rolls around, and a friend of mine, he was working at this veteran serving organization, helping vets find employment. And he said that they were seeking a veteran that has successfully transitioned out of the military to help other veterans navigate these challenges. And I was like, man, that sounds like purpose. What I'm doing now is just continuing to break my body. I was an arborist at the time. I was doing that for several years. And I was like, I can't see myself doing this for, another 20 plus years. So yeah, let's do it. And, I applied for this job. They selected me. And from there on out, they charged me with connecting with veterans across 7 counties in Southern New York. And it was humbling. I
Yeah.
mean, I was not meeting vets that were like, they weren't like myself at all, really. Not, and I did not have my stuff together at all. And to be honest with you, I look back, I'm like, I just as well could have been a recipient of the peer program. And just by nature of my job, I feel like I was, because I was meeting with these vets that were homeless, had severe substance abuse disorder, uh, couldn't keep their lights on, couldn't put food on the table, and they're just trying to survive another day, right? They had all of the mental health struggles and they've been dealing with it for decades. A lot of them Vietnam era vets. And just to sit down with them and have lunch with them was enough for them to like find like some semblance of community. And I did that for a year. And man, it just opened my eyes to some of the real problems that some of these rural underserved communities face. And so, there was some subsequent things that happened after that, but it was really some eye-opening work.
So, essentially, you would say that, transitioning out of the military, you face some sort of an identity crisis because you
100%.
spent all that time uh, creating, that version of yourself to serve and programming yourself to follow certain procedures. Then when you get out, it's like, well, you had a plan, and I feel like a lot of people don't talk about this, and that's the addiction that so many fall into. Whether it's coming out of the military, or I've also seen this in the prison system too. You had mentioned that the first thing that you thought of was wanting to go back into the military. And my mom was married to a guy who was in and out of prison a lot. And I remember when we had I had a conversation with my therapist about it. And, we were basically saying that, sometimes prison is all that they know. And just going back seems to be easier. So essentially, comparing that to what you were saying about the military, not saying it's like prison, but you get what I'm saying when I say that. Uh,
Yeah.
it's all that you know, and struggling to find community and support, I feel like, is something, especially transitioning back into the civilian life, you immediately need. So I can only imagine how hard struggling with alcoholism was. So let's talk about that a little bit. When
Yeah.
did you realize that it was becoming a problem, I guess, essentially holding you down?
I think I knew it was a problem, but was afraid to face it and actually open up to anybody about it.
Mhm.
Cause, showing your being vulnerable and showing that there's a weakness in your life was just not something any of us were really comfortable with, let alone service members, but men in general struggle with that, right?
Yeah.
And I was drinking very, very heavily every day to a point of being blackout, and I just would get up the next day and do my job and do it all over again. spending a lot of money on stuff that was just killing me, really, literally killing me. I got married in 2014, and it wasn't until, you know, several years later that we had children. And we struggled with infertility too throughout this period. And one of the things that the doc said, like, how much do you drink? Like, this could be a problem. So that was like one of the first indicators that was like, okay, my BS flag is, well, their BS flag is going up, and they're like calling me out of my shit. And so I was like, okay, I got to make an adjustment potentially. To be honest with you, I still just failed to acknowledge it, and it was continuing to plague me. And those I surrounded myself with too. And what I'll say about that is, like, those you choose to, be in your circle and associate with are going to influence you one way or the other. And if you have this is part of my story. When I stopped, like, I kind of lost a lot of my social groups too. But when I had my kids in 2017, I had two twins. Blessing and very happy about that. But my first year, 2017, there was a lot going on in my life, particularly related to my mental health struggles. And I wasn't doing much about it other than continuing to self-medicate.
Right.
After almost just like right after or right before their first birthday, I kind of had a reckoning. I came home one night and I was not sober, right? And I didn't even attempt to go to my own bedroom. I just went into a spare room and went to sleep. And I just self-reflected and was like, I'm going to destroy my marriage. I'm going to lose my children. I'm likely going to lose my life if I continue down this road. It's not helping me. It's not helping my community. The person I'm trying to be for other vets is a facade. So I needed to make a decision. And that night I said, okay, like, I'm done. I conveyed that to my spouse and said, like, I'm done. Like, and when I say something, I mean it. And from that day, which was November 4th, 2017, I didn't touch alcohol from then going forward. It didn't fix my problems. To be honest with you, it got worse before it got better.
Sure.
So what I will say about that is, like, have a plan. Maybe don't go cold turkey like I did. And there's a lot to unpack in that, but it just made me a hollow human being, made me more uncomfortable with who I was. I had to face a lot of realities and work through them. I didn't have a choice.
Right.
And it was through, it was a long enduring chapter of my life to get through. And it took several years to finally come out the other side and be like, this is the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
So another thing I would say to those of you who may be struggling or considering taking that step, give it some time. If you every day is a win, but, like, it takes time. It takes Absolutely. A long time.
So first of all, I just want to say congratulations on the sobriety. I think that's gigantic. We don't celebrate wins enough as men. We really don't. It's usually just we stop and, oh yeah, this happened 10 years ago. No big deal. But sobriety is a huge thing, man. So I'm really happy you got yourself off that, because I think that's incredible.
Thank you.
Secondly, I just want to say, it really is true when they say first step is admitting that you have a problem. And when you can look yourself in the mirror and admit all of those things that you said that you came to reckoning with, man, is huge for anybody. So again, man, I'm super glad you became sober, and I'm really glad you came to that realization, because I don't like reading those statistics. I don't like seeing them go up. I don't like seeing guys self-destruct. And man, you came a long way. And you said, what was that, 2017, you said?
Yeah.
2025. And we're having this conversation, man. So
yeah.
Good on
Thank
you for doing that, man. It's huge.
I appreciate it. And like I said, it got worse before it got better. And so going back to my chapter as a peer mentor, I had so at ClearPath, this is the organization I'm currently the CEO for. Prior to that, in 2016, I become a peer mentor. Within a year, I became really attracted to what was called their Dogs to Vets program.
Yeah.
And this program was designed to place veterans with service dogs, right, that were struggling with post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury. And again, like I was with the organization for a year. I was definitely interested in it, but I didn't feel like I fit the bill or I deserved it. And so I just like kind of didn't do anything about it. Eventually, I got encouraged to do so, and I participated in this program for about, well, as a recipient for 8 months. Right, I got matched with this dog. She was a shelter dog and totally unfit for service in every which
Right.
way you could imagine. And that was there's two things that happened. One, she opened up my eyes, this dog, to having a deep passion and affinity for training animals, and then also helping other veterans and coming alongside them and placing service dogs with them. So that began a new chapter for me within the organization. However, because of this dog and some of the challenges that she had personally, one, I developed like a lifelong bond with this dog. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. But at around the 8 month mark, I was like, guys, this isn't going to work. This dog can't do this job. She's not fit for this. And I threw in the towel and I retained her as a pet. And she was good for me, but not in the sense of mitigating symptoms related to post traumatic stress. She was a great companion. However, like at one point in March, so March of 2018, right? Like this is a few months after I quit drinking. I'm driving home one day, I get a call, and this kid says, I hit your dog in my car. And I was floored, right? Like I was already living out this like hollowed version of myself because I
Yeah.
was in the thick of sobriety. And I drive out and I'm like, she's wrecked, right? Like she's barely clinging on to life. I lived out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, like most vets, we like to be isolated and out in the woods somewhere, and that's where I was. And I ended up having to put her down myself. And it was horrible. I mean, because of what this dog represented was for me like a part of myself that was on a healing journey. And I
Yeah.
had to like snuff that out.
Right.
So I say all this because it was a catalyst for me to go back to this organization and facilitate some major, major changes. And it took some time though, because I went into a very dark place. I mean, for several days. And I would say that was close to the lowest point I've reached in my time transitioning out of the military. And so I rested with that. I learned that the only way to deal with a lot of this pain that I'm experiencing is to channel it into something positive.
Absolutely.
Came out on the other side, luckily, connected with the founder of ClearPath, expressed like all of my experience and told her that I thought we could do better as an organization. And she's like, I fully invest in what you want to do, and I'm going to help you get there. And she did. And she let me make some changes to this program, and it started with putting me on the staff, and within the program I became a dog trainer, and I started traveling around the country looking at all these other organizations that were doing this great work, which brought me into Assistance Dogs International, which is a big governing body that holds very high standards for service dogs organizations. And I was like, that's it. That's the bar that we should be going after. We owe it to the dogs, we owe it to the veterans, we owe it to the organization to do the best possible job we could. And so from 2018 to 2022, that was the goal, and we pursued this accreditation. We changed everything within the program. We dropped the old name. We call it the Canine Program at ClearPath now, and we've taken it from a grassroots, well-intended program to an internationally accredited program that places service dogs all over the country. And these are like the best quality dogs that you can get. So again, why I say this is because I think it's important for vets specifically to know that there's a lot of trauma that they're carrying, but what would they do if they could transform that? What would they do, and how would they pass the torch to somebody else? And so I would say that's just a kind of like a prevailing theme in my life, is just to endure, experience, and then transform.
I've noticed that when it comes to loss, whether it be a sibling, whether it be an animal, a pet, like you experienced, it always brings us to our strongest points in our life where it starts that one domino that knocks everything else down. When my brother passed away, he was killed by a drunk driver. Um, I started this podcast and I didn't have a direction, kind of like I just started doing it. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to talk about mental health subjects and just hopefully it catches on. Then I started bringing guests on and started hearing stories. Um, Now I'm in 24 different countries and it's incredibly humbling when you're at your lowest of lows and you feel like you're truly going to give up, especially after a big loss. Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly powerful to your testament that it took the lowest of lows to get to the highest of highs and doing what you're doing. So you had talked about the K9 program and that you're at an international level. Can you share with us any, specific memorable stories or experiences from the program that you've had?
Yeah. So the shortly after we became accredited in 2022, a gentleman reached out to me on my LinkedIn profile, and he was from Oregon. And he said, Ryan, you don't know me. I heard about you. I heard about your program. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I've been out of the service for 53 years. I've tried to connect with 3 or 4 different service dog organizations, but either they've turned me away or said it's going to be 3 years before I can receive a dog. And I don't know if I have that kind of time left. And I was like, okay, this is divine providence to some degree. Like he is connecting with me at this time. I can do something about this. So I'm going to. So I reassured him. I was like, I got you. Like, let me start to get the process going for you, get you connected. And I promised to do all this within a year's time frame. And that was like, for me, some of the criteria that I feel is just absolutely critical for what we're doing, because it's too often that people are saying that it's going to take 3 or 4 or 5 years before they can get a service dog. And we can do better than that as a community, as a village. And if we can't do it, then we got to find somebody that can.
Yeah,
So we got him rolling. He was eligible, approved, and we flew him out to Central New York for 10 days. He went through the full training program, and he did it very well, was placed with one of our best dogs at the time. And man, throughout the whole cycle, this guy was, I mean, he was in tears, and he has professed to me that this dog saved his life. He has completely changed his overlook on the next day. He's been better connected within his community. And it's just been incredible to watch that whole thing happen. And to this, we talk all the time. He reaches out and just shares some stories or sends some pictures. And I was humbled, for one, because the Vietnam era just weren't treated the same way we were when we got
yeah,
back. And not to say it was seamless and perfect, but it was certainly better than the way they were treated. And I had told him, I was like, man, this is a gift for me, because I'm able to give back to a community that paved the way for veterans of our current era. So
right.
thank you. I'm glad to do this. We were able to do everything all inclusive at no cost to him or his. We brought his wife out too, and just a very incredible, humbling experience.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I got goosebumps hearing that story, man. I love hearing that people care about that generation of veterans because honestly, we see it every day. The homeless, so many homeless veterans, so many veterans struggling from addiction, especially from that era. It happens in our era of veterans too, but to hear somebody like yourself be willing to give back to that extent, I think is incredibly powerful. And I'm really happy you shared that story because looking back at how my grandpa, he served in the Korean War, and I can't imagine they were treated, any worse or better than the Vietnam veterans were. But I can only imagine just them coming back from a war that, so many claim that we shouldn't have been part of, and how they were treated by the public and whatnot, and vilified. And I I love seeing the videos of people taking care of veterans, and I hate seeing the people that go after them too, because it's like, listen, man, we're all human beings at the end of the day. We're all
Yeah.
here for one go around. And when you said the part of him saying, I don't know if I have that kind of time left, man, and then hearing him tell you that you saved his life is why we do this. Is why we do what we do, man. It's
100%.
thank you for sharing that story, man. I think
Yeah, definitely.
you're doing incredible work.
It's a gift, like I said, and we do so much more. ClearPath is really about community. We meet the veterans where they're at. We help establish some goals and baselines. We establish some baselines and then develop goal plans to help them get to where they're going, be it employment, education, finances, housing, mental health, service dogs. ClearPath is it's a community integrator. It helps build communities, but it also has core programming that's directly aligned with the challenges that veterans are facing, not only in New York State, but beyond our borders too.
Mhm.
There's so much more to do. And like I said, it does take a village. So we're not one to claim to do everything. If there's partners in the community that are doing something incredible, we'd love to connect with them as well so that we can build our network, continue to pass veterans off to the place that they're going to be best served. So
Yeah.
it's amazing.
One of our, one of the most common themes of this podcast has been community, right? What would you say is the biggest challenge that you have found within the organization and in your current role? What would you say is your biggest challenge or has been?
Connecting with the underserved is always going to be a big challenge, and I would say the other part of that is not just like rural communities where people don't have access to the campus. We've done something about that. We actually have our peer mentors are mobile and they have vehicles where they can travel to the veteran wherever they are in New York State. But there are a lot of vets that are like, they look at ClearPath and they say, I don't deserve that, right? Like, that's not my place because I didn't do enough, or I'm not wounded, or I didn't see combat. And the message that we're trying to convey to the entire military community and their families that this is a place that you belong. You own it. Come use it, visit it, build your community here. Our campus is 78 acres in the middle of rural New York. It's an incredible facility. Words don't do it justice. It overlooks an amazing view, has a mix of hardwoods, trails. There's a lodge. People can come have a gathering, grab coffee, meet for lunch on a Wednesday and not have to pay a dime for it. Participate in our wellness programs. It's literally like a haven for veterans.
Yeah.
And so we just want more vets to come use our services, be it in New York State or beyond. So we're always looking to connect, always looking for people that have their own great ideas that we could fold into the network so that we can continue doing the incredible work.
So how do you get the word out of your organization? Obviously, social media being a really big platform, but do you guys go to conferences or anything like that and get the word out of your organization, or is it just kind of word of mouth?
It's a mixed bag of everything. This is a big part, right? Like the first time in the history of ClearPath we've ever been invited on to so many podcasts this year, and we're taking this opportunity and running with it because it's just a great platform to get the word out, share the work that we're doing. We do a lot of like local media and that kind of thing. We do attend conferences. We do host people, and we have a great social media presence and all of that. I'm one for face-to-face. I love face-to-face conversations, authentically connecting with people. Also realize we're in a digital age. So one thing we're looking to do here in the near term is take all the content from our programming and create a digital community out of it so people can connect with ClearPath through multiple pathways. We understand everybody, a lot of vets are working 9 to 5 and they can't just come up to the campus. So we ask ourselves, like, how do we create something for them?
Right.
And so this is like a next chapter for us that we're
I love
working on right now. Yeah.
I love that. What are some of the future plans for ClearPath? Are there any new initiatives or programs on the horizon?
Definitely new initiatives and programs. I mean, we've recently adopted a vocational program called Operation Socrates, and that helps service members and families that are looking to get into K through 12 teaching jobs connect with us. We have a partnership with the Department of Defense Skill Bridge program, and we can connect them with mentors all across the country and specific school districts to help get a job in a K through 12 teaching field, which is it's a new thing. It's pretty unique, and there's a big need for teachers, and veterans are great candidates for that as well. So if you're interested, definitely reach out. Our canine program is expanding. So our campus, again, it's 78 acres. We run multiple programs out of a a lodge. It's a fairly sized building, but it's not enough for the footprint that we need to multiply our canine program. And so we're doing a build out, costs a ton of money. Everything does these days, and we're looking to start this campus expansion sometime this year. And we're likely going to be able to double the numbers we're serving. And we're also going to have cabins on site so that when we're bringing vets in from across the country, they have a cabin to stay in, family style. They can have immediate access to programs and service right on the property, compared to right now we put them in Airbnbs and hotels, again at no cost, but it's just we feel it'd be a better experience to have them right on site. So that's something new that we're working on. We've been doing peer mentoring for 15 years, doing incredible work there. That continues to evolve. And again, the canine program, that's for me holds a real near and dear place to my heart. And I'm always going to look to continue to invest into that program.
I look forward to seeing that growth, man. I think this world needs more of what you're doing. So I'm really happy to hear that there are plans in motion to grow some more, man. I think networking and growth is the most important part of what we do. Um, what keeps you inspired in your role to continue to help others seeking assistance through your organization?
It's hard. That's what keeps me going is the challenge. And there's never been anything that I've ever accomplished in my entire life that didn't take some level of struggle. I honestly feel like most of my life has been part is all struggle, and overcoming struggle has been a prevailing theme. And I've learned to work through that. And anytime I'm in face of adversity, I look at that as an indicator that I'm going down the right path and to keep pressing on. This new role as the CEO of the organization, I was not built to be I'm a Marine Corps infantryman.
Right.
I didn't get a PhD in organizational leadership. I'm an infantryman that's had some hard times and have gotten through it. And I just try to be an honest broker. So, being asked to do this job was at my first was like, no, I'm not equipped for that. I don't have the right skill sets. I'm not one to manage annual budgets and board meetings, but I dove right in. I've been doing it. So far, so good. And if it's going to lead to lasting impact on the veteran community, then if I'm the guy, I'm going to continue to do it. So I'm grateful.
I love that, man. Is your brother involved with it at all, or any parts of your family? Are they involved with it at all?
Indirectly,
Yeah.
they're all recipients in some way. They come experience ClearPath in their own unique ways. My brother, he's got a full-time job. He lives around the corner from me, big advocate for me, and has been a great supporter.
I love that. What advice would you give to veterans who are struggling to find support and resources?
Find support and resources. So there's so much out there, and like it can be overwhelming to sit on the other end of a table and somebody pass a folder over to you and with like a repository of resources, right? Like it's best to connect with somebody face to face that has worked through some of these challenges and to help them develop something customized for you, like a one size fits one approach. That's something that we work really hard at ClearPath. So our peer mentors on staff will connect with you and talk with you, get to know you, know your unique challenges, and then provide you with the unique resources that you need for your specific circumstances. I think that's very important. Don't do it alone.
Yeah.
Find a community. Big thing for me is having a value structure. And when I say that is like something that you're holding yourself to some level of accountability to. It gives you a reason to get out of bed every day, to do the things you do. It can start with family. It can be I'm not a big fan of the project self, but if that's step one, then start there until you get to a place where you can start to help others, because veterans do best when they're serving. And
Yeah.
that's no different than when they took their oath to 50 years post-retirement. I feel that veterans have an innate desire to serve, and they should find a place where they can do that.
Love that. I think you said two really big things that stood out for me is that's not doing it alone and also holding yourself accountable. I think that's something this entire community, not just in the veterans, but also just the mental health community, is holding yourself accountable. You stated earlier in the podcast that healing doesn't happen overnight. It took you several years to get to where you're at. And I think it's important for people to realize that it's not an overnight process, and holding ourselves accountable every step of the way of our journey is super important. So glad you said that because it's a word that I live by is accountability. So
Yeah.
I usually ask all my guests this question, and I'm curious to hear your answer. What is one thing that you could change in this mental health community?
Change. Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of formulas out there.
Hmm.
Like things become very legalistic and you just got to go through the steps kind of thing. I don't feel that that's right for everybody. And I'm not saying assume everything is a conspiracy or anything like that, but take a closer look at the options you have available and pursue a direction that makes sense for you. When you think about who you're ultimately going to become or what your purpose and your identity is, makes it it aligns with some of those treatment options that you're considering. There's so much available right now. Everything from uh, clinical psychology to plant medicine, and just know that we can become paralyzed by the amount of information that's
Yeah,
available. It's overwhelming. It's honestly it's too damn much.
I agree.
Um, Hard work pays off, and if as long as you can set yourself into some kind of cadence that makes sense for you, it can be as simple as this week. I'm going to get up at this time every day. You start there.
Yeah,
Next week, I'm going to get up at the same time and I'm going to read a paragraph of a book that is helpful, or it doesn't have to be a self-help book,
yeah,
but a productive book. And just you start to aggregate all of those little pieces that ultimately become a very big picture. So incremental success is huge.
and I think it's also, just to kind of piggyback off of that, small steps are still steps. People say that you're not making progress unless you're making leaps and bounds, and it's not reality. Reality is small wins are still wins. Build up those small wins until you get to that big one, and then you can really celebrate that you got there. Whether it's 1 year, whether it's 10 years of sobriety, a small win is still a win. It's still leading to a bigger picture. And if you woke up today and say that you're not okay, guess what? That is the biggest win that you can do to start healing. And I couldn't agree with everything that you said more than I do now, because I think we're too hard on ourselves, man, especially as guys. We're super hard on ourselves. I'm sure that as a father, you beat yourself up on things that you could have possibly said differently one day, or damn, I wish I could have guided them this direction instead of that direction. I'm sure it's an everyday battle, but we're human beings. It's give yourself some grace, give yourself some patience, because I think so many of us are so used to just taking it on the chin, rub dirt in it, be a man. It's life's too short, man. We can pass away tomorrow, and what is our legacy? You know what I mean? It's life's about what you make it. You know.
Yeah, you said it best.
So at the end of every podcast, I like to read a mental health based quote or the subject at hand. Before we get to those, where can our listeners find you on socials?
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. We're on all of them. Just look at Clear Path for Vets and you'll find us. We have the website and all of our contact information is on all of that. So looking forward to hearing from you.
Perfect. Do you have any words that you live by, or any quotes that stick out to you? If not, no pressure. It's all good.
None that I can think of off the top of my head, but there is a book I would recommend, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Read
Okay.
that a few times. Incredible book. That and Gates of Fire, just because was on the Marine Corps reading list a long time ago. I've read it about 1,000 times. Great book.
Okay. Perfect. So today's quote is from the Mind is Journal. It doesn't have an author on it, but it reads, "When your mental health isn't in the best state, give yourself a break. Don't feel guilty for things you can't do. Normal things like eating, sleeping, or socializing may be difficult. It's okay to struggle. Rest, recover, be kind to yourself, and know the bad times are temporary."
Love it.
Bad times are temporary. Cannot state that last part of that sentence any more than that, man. We're so used to sometimes just lying in our misery, right? It's so easy to get caught up in stress and the bad things that are going on around the world, whether it's the climate, whether it's whatever. It's really hard to stay positive all the time. But again, we're human beings and we need to give ourselves some grace. So, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on today's podcast. And again, thank you for your service and everything that you're doing.
Thank you, Chris. It's my pleasure, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man. And to all my listeners, thank you guys so much for your support. As always, be gentle with yourselves. Until next time, take care and much love.